Welcome to Wellbeing Wednesdays. Today, our guest is Dr. Arbinder Singal, who is the co-founder and CEO of Fitterfly. Fitterfly is a health tech startup working in the field of digital health and digital therapeutics. Dr. Singal is a renowned super specialist doctor and a healthcare entrepreneur with over a decade of experience in the field of pediatric urology, both in India and overseas. He is someone who's an avid blogger. He's a fitness freak himself and a subject matter expert. Today, we're going to speak to him to understand that beyond the medicine, how does technology, how does digital healthcare help people fight obesity and diabetics? Over to Dr. Arbinder Singal. Welcome, Arbinder, to Wellbeing Wednesdays. Thank you so much for taking our time. My first question to you is that most people who are professionals or they're professionally qualified for something and they choose to become an entrepreneur, there is some purpose that they're trying to fulfill. There's a mission that they're trying to accomplish. What has been your story? How did Fitterfly start?
Thanks, Arvinder, for inviting me here. It's just great to connect with you and indulge in this something because ultimately purpose defines the whole linear array which we understand as life, the meaning of life. So I was a very successful doctor, a surgeon, and running my own hospital and a couple of hospitals. And in 2016, I realized that the world is not around us, right around us. And I saw that a lot of children were getting fat, a lot of children were unwell, and especially when I treat children with the urological surgeries, I could see that they are not healthy and they are not going to be healthy 20 years from now. My family has struggled with diabetes. My dad had diabetes. I've lost two first cousins because of diabetes. So in 2016, we started with the theory, let's build technology to understand the wellness of children. So from 2016 to 2018, we worked with a lot of children with Indian Academy of Pediatrics, and we built an excellent technology portal to understand the nutrition and fitness of children. And then in 2019, I was diagnosed with pre-diabetes. I had a couple of episodes where I fainted in the gym with low blood sugars, taken to the hospital. My HbA1c was high, and this is called reactive hypoglycemia, which occurs in early stages of diabetes. And then I went to a doctor, and doctor said the usual advice: there are high chances of getting into diabetes, though you look fit. Take care, check annual blood sugars, do exercise, eat healthy. This is the typical 4 to 5 minute consultations which a patient gets to a doctor. And final killing nail is always don't worry, don't take stress, everything will be fine. That never is actionable. But I had different ideas in mind. So what I did was I patched a continuous glucose monitor device along with the nutrition database which we had built for children. And we had built a switch there that you can change the age of the patient into an adult, and everything gets confirmed for an adult. And the data which came out was startling. Wheat was raising my blood sugars while rice was not. And my blood sugars were falling with after certain exercises, but they were rising with certain exercises. Similarly, I had early morning 3 a.m. low blood sugars, which were leading to a rise at 6 a.m. So I observed all these patterns, and I started making a lot of hacks with myself. And finally, my blood sugars came down by 20-30%. Pre-diabetes completely reversed. Started sleeping better, and I lost weight. I didn't need to lose weight. I was not dieting at all. So then a couple of my friends called me. I said, what are you up to? I said, this is what I'm up to. And all of them are doctors, endocrinology. They said, why don't you take 10 of our patients and help them out on WhatsApp? There was no app, there was no portal, and we were doing all manual work. And 8 out of those 10 patients, the medication started reducing. And then they called me, why don't you do it as a business? I said, no, we haven't thought about diabetes. But then when I started reading about diabetes and I started talking to my family members who struggle, they said, there is a huge gap. There is first step where you get diagnosed either through annual health checkup or going to a doctor. And there this consultation happens where this blood test is analyzed and doctor gives you a diagnosis and puts you on a medication. But after that, the real journey, the patient is all alone. There is no support. There is no structure. There is only a pill and there is only a diagnosis. There is some basic support or some very people who can do it themselves by reading Google and all that. But 99% of the people need a structure to get from point A to point B. So then we started realizing that while we keep working with children, that's a distant vision. The real problem is with the younger population, 25, 30, 35, 40-year-olds who are getting into early stages of diabetes. If we make an impact today, that will save a lot of GDP for India. So that was the mission. And then everything just came calling. My experience as a doctor, running hospitals, building technology portals, building databases, myself getting into early diabetes. And then I realized here is an impact which we can create, which is today, which you can feel every single day when you go to work. When you see hundreds of people calling up and saying their blood sugars are better than before. And that just became such a meaningful purpose that when I get up in the morning, I'm like, how can this be 1,000 people? How can this be 10,000 people? The problem is so huge. It is so huge. And the way it is not abating, uh, it's only rising. See, we have better doctors now, more medications, cheaper and better blood tests, but still diabetes is increasing. So there is something fundamentally wrong with the system. I see it as a doctor, and I think people who are non-doctors, they also realize there's something fundamentally wrong. It's not fits in. Everything else is improving, but why is diabetes increasing? So we said, this is a big problem. Let's go after it. Let's make it a meaningful life to go after it.
So, Dr. Singhal, I mean, you are a medical professional yourself. You're a surgeon, and so you understand the importance of medicine. You understand the importance of managing a disease or a condition. But and there is enough and much more information available on diabetes with people on Google and in otherwise. I mean, people around you have enough information to share with you. But knowing in what to do does not trigger the action. What is it that technology is doing today to trigger that mindset shift so that people start acting on the information that they have?
That's a wonderful question. I think that is the gap always, right? We all know we should study, but not everybody studies. We all know we should work hard, but not everybody works hard. We all know that we should eat healthy, but not everybody eats healthy. So, this is the most difficult problem to solve. This is the problem of behavior change. You know what you should do, but your behaviors and your habits stop you from doing that. Now, one thing is obviously have a guru or a coach or a guide, a mentor who will help you on this journey. Even when we start to study, though there are textbooks, but often a guru makes it faster. If you want to learn a music, a coach or a guru makes it much faster than, though there are books available, there are YouTube videos available, but people who go to a dance teacher, music teacher, art teacher, they do significantly better and faster. So the whole purpose of technology here can be human capital is always less, right? The number of people requiring this kind of support is always going to be finite and limited. The number of doctors, the number of paramedicals, the number of coaches. We can never have enough people who can do this, even if we do 1:1 or 1:4. So the goal of technology is how do you build those structures by using technology, which can have three components. So we divide it into the phases of awareness. One is awareness. So awareness can be split into two parts. One is getting aware that you have diabetes. That is already solved. I'm assuming the population which we're talking about, they already know that they have weight problem or diabetes problem. Second awareness is why has this happened? And what is the exact reason and what exactly things need to be done? What are the exact faults? Otherwise, everybody cannot have the same pill, right? Everything is a different human being, different DNA, different set of behavior. So that awareness around what will work for them is a very important thing which technology can give at scale. Then the second step comes in the choices. If I'm given a set of choices and I'm empowered to make those choices, then we move away from a prescription into a participation. Typical medical consultation is across the table where doctor sits and prescribes things. Now that advice is generally good to a certain point, but not an everyday point. Imagine a doctor telling you every day, you won't go back to the doctor. Doctor is good for diagnosis, establishing the line of treatment. If we move on to the participation mood using technology, then we put nudge theory into it so that we nudge you to make the right choices every day. Ultimately, decision has to be the patient's decision. And finally, the outcomes. If you can track yourself that you change this habit or this behavior, and this was the nudge on basis of which you're doing it, and you see small wins every week. You see half kg of weight loss, you see your blood sugars down by 20. You know that the technology nudged you that why don't you substitute your Maggie with this? And next day you see the blood sugars dropping. Or the app nudges you for going for a walk post lunch for 3 days and you see your blood sugars are down. Or the app tells you to meditate for 15 minutes before going to sleep and you have much better sleep. So these are very quantifiable outcomes which you can see. So I think the role of technology is to be with you every day without human interaction, nudge you for making, first give you the right choices, nudge you towards adopting those choices on a regular basis into your behavior, giving you small wins so you can track your progress so that you can finally get the larger outcome. This system is otherwise very difficult to build. We cannot expect the patients to go to hospital every day and interact with the dietitian, physiotherapist. And the systems are there and they can consume it when they want. So the whole thing hinges finally on creating awareness, behavior change, getting the outcomes.
Right. So, Dr. Singhal, one of the things that comes into my mind, one is I am so glad that you use the word guru than an expert, because I just find expert to be a very transactional. These things that you pay money,
Cool.
get advice, and guru is someone that you go with faith, and then you do believing that things are going to change, and which is what probably triggers you. But coming to my next question is, the difference between uh, the typical lifestyle change when you look at diabetes. What used to be was that you start exercising, you start having nutritional food or balancing your diet, etc. But today, what has got added is meditation, stress management, etc. How, in your opinion, do you see these playing a role, and how does Fitterfly uh, include all of this in terms of, like you said, nudging the person to do the right thing?
That's again a difficult question, but I'll try to concise my thoughts. It's a all-encompassing question which you're asking, Mr. Narula. So first, I'll touch a little bit about nutrition, because what we have followed in nutrition, I've sat in enough number of clinics with the diabetologists and endocrinologists. They typically have a dietitian, almost 20-30%. You go out, they understand what you eat on a piece of paper on an Excel. They chart the calories, protein, fiber, and give you a diet plan. So that's the typical nutritional advice, which is same for if Harbinder has a weight of 70 kgs and Harbinder has a weight of 70 kgs, we both go and we have same HbA1c, we will get the same kind of diet plan. We believe that is very shallow science in today's day. Nutrition should be extremely personalized. One criteria is what is healthy for you. The other criteria is what you like eating. If I ask a Punjabi to eat Bengali food, he'll eat for 7 days, but he won't persist with it. It's not sustainable. If I ask you to do keto, you may do for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. You may not last beyond that. So what needs to happen in the nutrition is very scientific personalization need to happen. So what we did at Fitterfly was we put continuous glucose monitoring devices. We have a software which uses a lot of intelligence on the back end to calculate how much grams of wheat causes how much rise in blood sugar, how much grams of rice, millets. There is millet mania going on. A lot of people are eating jawar, ragi, but in some people actually jawar, ragi are raising the blood sugar more than wheat. This is called personalized glycemic response. For everybody, the response varies by 20 to 30%, even within the same family. So we use technology at scale to give everybody the right kind of plan which will actually lower the blood sugars without strict dieting. We quantify, we qualify, we change the meal compositions so that the blood sugars don't rise after each meal. So I think even rethinking the nutrition in a scientific way, given that we have so much of technology and data available, can change the person's life completely. Now, the second aspect is fitness. And you talked about exercise. I think a lot of people, when they're diagnosed to have diabetes, they straight start going to gym. And we have enough number of cases who injured themselves because they got over enthusiastic. They didn't want to start medication. I think first thing in fitness should be getting a fitness assessment, understanding what your body's status currently is. You can do it at a local gym or you can do with a fitness trainer. Do a proper fitness assessment, what your body can take, what's the level of flexibility, what's the level of power, and then go on to a graduated incremental improvement in fitness. So we do this at Fitterfly for every patient who joins the program. They have a 1 hour video fitness assessment. We have done more than 2-3,000. It's the largest number in the world now. And we understand if they have any pain, any flexibility issues, what's their upper limb power, lower limb power, how much they can stretch. And then they go on to a graduated improvement in fitness over 3 to 6 months. We don't want them to get injured, right? That's the main thing. And then lastly, the most important thing which binds the nutrition and fitness is the mental well-being. What we realize is stress is a big cause of rise in blood sugars. And that is in fact the precursor of high blood pressure also. That's the precursor of poor sleep also. So what we did was we tied up with Behavioral Diabetes Institute in US, and they have done a lot of research on understanding diabetes specific stress in people. It is called DDS, Diabetes Distress Score. It checks you on emotional response to diabetes, interpersonal response to diabetes. It checks you on whether you are distressed because of the way doctor behaves with you. It's called physician distress. Then regimen distress. If you've been asked to do something very strict, it produces a distress in you. You feel incapable, that you're not able to do what your guide told you. So these are the 4 parameters of stress. Understanding that stress, it takes just 5 minutes on a questionnaire or a call. Then you have a set of interventions. One is meditation, other are breathing exercises. Then there are to-do tasks. Then there are set of algorithms which are built understanding your stress and how we give you some activities which can reduce the stress. And the moment the stress starts coming down, you feel more in control. The worst thing which the stress does is we feel out of control. The moment you feel in control, your compliance improves, then you're able to manage that. And the last thing which happens is the sleep. If you don't sleep well for one night, your blood sugar is up by 3% the next morning. And if you don't sleep well for a month, your blood sugar is up by 10 to 12%. So if you can tie this all together and understand that, and for stress reduction, there are various things like you talked about meditation, which is of course the gold standard and the best way to do it. But a lot of people feel guilty when they're not able to meditate. I have tried it and I struggled in the initial few days. But breathing can be an alternative to meditation. For people who are uninitiated, cannot concentrate, breathing may be a better way of, or a segue into getting into meditation. So I think these things play a very big role, but they have to be structured, quantified, and show the progress to the member. If they're just taken ad hoc, like somebody is going to gym randomly or doing some YouTube meditation, but without a full structure around this, then they often fail to bind together as a glue and give to a coherent journey. We are very strong believers, and we have so many stories of patients now. They said their diabetes is better now just because their stress is less. And there are stories of women who were feeling guilty that they are taking time out for themselves. That's the biggest problem. Or there are people who said that they're so busy at work they cannot take time out for themselves. There are employees who are struggling with bad bosses. There are people who don't want to go back to the doctor's clinic because sometimes doctors judge them when they see a bad blood sugar or a rise in weight. Rather than understanding why it happened, the first is the judgment passed out, right? How do you help them cope up with those things so that they still remain in the medical system and follow a structured advice is a very key component. And I think, as we talked about, something is wrong with the health system. Something is not worked. I think this is the one dimension which is missing in the current healthcare system. Understanding your behaviors, understanding your stress, understanding your sleep, motivating you to build healthy habits. If we bring in that, then the rest of the problems like fitness, nutrition can be taken care of very well.
So, Dr. Singal, you spoke about that, lack of sleep or lack of good sleep may lead to an increased level in sugars, right? And now, does diabetes lead you to getting bad sleep, or is it the other way around? I mean, I know other way around, definitely, that if you don't sleep well, your sugars will rise. But is it that people who are diabetic tend to have a bad quality sleep?
Absolutely right, Harbinder. These things are correlated with each other. So there are two reasons why people with diabetes may have, three reasons actually why people with diabetes may have poor sleep. So one is if their blood sugars are falling in the night, they will have a restless sleep. It's called nocturnal hypoglycemia. Typically happens between 2 to 4 a.m. It can happen because of a bad dinner. It can happen because of over medication. So if the medication is not right in the night and it doesn't corroborate with the kind of meal which you're having, and or you didn't have a good meal, then it can lead to uh, falling blood sugar. And if you have a high carbohydrate meal in the night, initially the blood sugars will spike, but then insulin and medication response will set in and they will fall after 3-4 hours. So those are the causes of blood sugar fluctuation causing a poor quality of sleep in diabetes. The second reason for a poor quality of sleep in diabetes, maybe a lot of these people have associated problems. Like if you're especially obese, you may be prone to obstructive sleep apnea. Heavy snoring, stop and stop breathing, or even high blood pressures in the night can cause poor sleep. And they both are because of diabetes in some way, right? So these are the two main reasons why you may have poor sleep because of that. And the third reason is neuropathy. People with advanced diabetes, more than 7-8 years of diabetes, and especially if the HbA1c is high, they have some kind of minor nerve damage which starts at about 7 to 10 years of diabetes. They may have tingling sensations in their feet, like ant walking up their feet, or they may have restless leg syndrome, which can lead to poor quality, which is again primarily because of diabetes being not in control. My dad has struggled with it. Like after 15 years of diabetes, though his blood sugars were pretty well controlled, he had neuropathy, and it was very difficult for him to sleep at night. So these are the three reasons which play out in diabetes being responsible for poor sleep.
So, in your experience of working with thousands of people, do you think that this new structure that we have got created, which is beyond the medicine, beyond the doctor, but creating a structure that keeps you motivated and nudges you to start leading a holistic lifestyle, has it seen to reverse diabetes and cure it completely?
So now, when I first heard about reversal of diabetes, my first response was, "This is snake oil. This is what homeopathy and homeopathy will sell." And then we read a lot of research in 2019. Dr. Roy Taylor from from UK has done a lot of research. See, reversal of diabetes is very different from cure. Reversal is a loosely used term for diabetes, but actually the clinical term is remission of diabetes. Diabetes is a metabolic condition where your insulin does not match the amount of carbohydrate calories which you're having. That's why there is rise in blood sugar. So when people come in early stages of diabetes, like within 5 to 10 years of diabetes, and their BMI is above 23, 24, getting them to follow healthy habits and getting them to exercise and manage their stress and sleep can lead to remission of diabetes in about 90 to 95% of the patients. But once they are beyond 10 years and once their medications have climbed up to 3 or 4 medications, then it's very difficult to reverse it completely or let it go into complete remission. You may still have a partial remission in terms of lowering of medications, better blood sugars, but it's very difficult to reverse completely. We have cases even after 15 years who have gone off medications completely, but the percentages start falling once they are beyond 8 and 10 years of diabetes. There are cases who have really worked hard and got into it. But I want to be very clear when I'm talking to you, especially since you are also a man of science. You know, it is not a cure. It is that you're getting a control. Your body is a house which is on rent. You have to pay the rent every day. If you stop paying the rent, the landlord may give you space for 3 months extra. Suppose you get into healthy habits, your blood sugars come normal, and you stop taking medications. One, you have to monitor it every 3 months to make sure that you're there. Second, you keep on following the healthy habits, and you may not need medications for 5 or 10 years also. But that being said, a lot of Indians do develop a beta cell dysfunction. And suppose somebody was diagnosed with diabetes at 40 years, he gets into a program like Fitterfly, goes off the medication. He may remain, if he keeps following good blood lifestyle, he may remain off medications till 50, 55, 60 years. But there are chances that at that age, the beta cells may not produce enough insulin and he may require some medications at that stage. So it's not a complete cure. It is a remission in which blood sugars become normal without medications.
Got it. So I think the key word here is control and not the reverse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So great. Now, when we look at the mindset of a diabetic, I'm myself diabetic, and I know that you suddenly get those cravings for meat and everything. How do you recommend people manage their environment, the surroundings? Because everybody else is having a certain food at home, so it's very difficult to stop yourself. So how does your structure support the environment that is around that person in which he's living in?
Again, a very difficult question because I like to take a little bit of sweet after every meal. I'm very fond of desserts. There was a time I used to start with desserts before the dinner. So I think again making healthy choices is very important. There are desserts which have a high amount of refined sugar, and if you're pairing it with a meal which already had high amount of non simple carbohydrates like maida and lot of added sugar, you're already having a meal high in carbohydrates without salad, and then you're pairing up with a dessert which is high in refined sugar. It's definitely not good. So I think it begins with the choices. If you have a Like one, you earn your dessert, right? You plan your day. If you're going out for a party, you plan your day accordingly, and in the party you choose the right kind of meal in terms of having a salad first, having enough amount of water, choosing complex carbohydrates, and then choosing the desserts. Even if you like a high refined sugar, have a very small serving of it, and then have a healthy dessert. You can pair it like that. So I also realize that restrictions don't work. Very strict restriction, and body is built to take care of cheating days. So if you cheat once in a while, like once a week or once in 2 weeks, it really doesn't matter. Your body has enough compensatory mechanisms to keep your blood sugars in control even if you cheat for one day. This is called glycemic happiness. And I'm very fond of this word. Dr. Sanjay Kalra gave me this word. Just because you have diabetes, you should not be unhappy, following a very restricted pattern. So I like to cheat, but I also like to monitor what happened because of that cheating. Now I have a full library of healthy desserts which I can eat without any problem. My fridge is stocked with at least 4 desserts at all time, and I know what dinner, what dessert would not raise my blood sugar because I've checked it on CGMS. So I think planning, monitoring, and then cheating once a week is good enough. It doesn't matter really.
So, what are these desserts that don't raise your sugar levels?
So one, we get this khajur barfi, which has little bit of khajur, but all dry fruits, no artificial added sugar. Second is sandesh, which works very well. It's paneer and little bit of sugar. So these two are always there in my fridge. Third is chikki, which is made with good and lot of peanuts, less good and more peanuts. So these three are always there in my fridge.
Lovely. That personally helps me. So, Dr. Singal, since we are talking of food, is it possible to ditch the fancy diet plans that are usually there for controlling diabetes? How can one control diabetes in your everyday home meals?
So I think fancy diet plans will work for a short period of time. Like somebody is going to get married, they want to lose 6 kgs in 6 weeks. Those kind of diet plans are good for that, right? But diabetes is a lifelong condition, and I believe everything is lifelong. Even weight loss or staying healthy, staying fit, staying positive. These are lifelong right things which we build around ourselves. Uh, and and we cannot treat. Suppose a family has 5 members, one person has diabetes. The environment has to be conducive that whole family starts eating healthy, right? It's not a one person's choice, it's the family's choice. And ideally we should not need diabetes to reach that state, right? We should be in that state always. So I think the whole environment around making the healthy choices, letting go of refined sugars, letting go of I think madas, using multi-grains over single grains, those are the initiatives the whole family has to take. And we have so many stories where the husband enrolled into diabetes program and the wife lost 7 kgs because she said, I cannot cook 2 meals, I'll cook the same what I'm cooking for husband, I'll made a little change. So I think you're absolutely right. It is just changing the environment of the family so that people find it less resistance and they don't feel that they're served on a separate plate. Like in olden times, the servants used to have a separate plate and it was so demeaning. And I think similarly for diabetes, you should not have a separate plate. It should be the choice of the family with a little bit of cheating thrown in once in a while.
Got it. So, Dr. Singal, Fitterfly also focuses on obesity. Now, my question is, it is understandable that obesity may be leading to diabetes, but could it be the other way around that if you are diabetic, you tend to put on weight, or do you tend to lose weight? What is true?
Um, so you're absolutely right. So all this is, obesity and diabetes have a common origin. People who have a family history of obesity or diabetes, they tend to get obese and they tend to develop diabetes. So they have to be extra careful. But the other way around is also partly true. So in the early stages, when you're diagnosed to have diabetes, you generally lose weight because your appetite goes down and you feel hungry, but you kind of have glycosuria and all those things happening. So in early stages of diabetes, people lose weight. But once you're put on medication, there are certain medications which cause weight gain in diabetes. You feel more hungry, you want to eat more, and so you have to be very careful, specifically when you're put on insulin and sulfonylureas. These are the two drugs which cause quite a lot of weight gain. So you have to be very careful that you structure your diet and your exercise so that just because you've got diagnosed to have diabetes, you put on medication and you start gaining weight. Yeah.
Uh, Doctor, also, diabetes is something that affects everyone, you know. And we know that a huge population in India is suffering from diabetes, and it affects men as well as women. But since physiologically we are two different kind of bodies, how does it affect women, which is unique to them?
See, women has a very different life cycle. If you look at the women, physiology is very different, as you rightly pointed out. One is once they start going into puberty and post-puberty, um, we are seeing more and more instances of women coming with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. And one of the components of PCOS is insulin resistance, which is also the hallmark of type 2 diabetes. So what we are seeing is a lot of women come initially with PCOS, with the irregular menses, some hair growth, and some weight gain. And when they get pregnant, they have very high chances. One is they have a higher chances of infertility. Second is, even if they get pregnant, they develop diabetes, type 2 diabetes during pregnancy, which leads to a bigger baby, and then that baby is prone to get diabetes later on. So this is the whole generational change which happens with that. The second thing is, post pregnancy, most of these diabetes regress for a while, but they are at extremely high risk of getting type 2 diabetes at a younger age. So imagine a woman had polycystic ovarian syndrome with insulin resistance. She becomes pregnant at 25 years, delivers a baby. She has diabetes during pregnancy, and she requires help during that. But after she delivers the baby and she doesn't take care of her health after that, she doesn't lose weight, she doesn't exercise, she doesn't adopt the healthy behaviors, by the age of 35, 40, she'll have diabetes, which is about 5 to 10 years earlier than a man. So this is a full continuum which happens from PCOS to insulin resistance to diabetes in pregnancy, then diabetes later on, which is very different from men because we are shielded from those hormonal influences during puberty and during pregnancy. So that is a very different nature. And similarly, during menopause, they have higher chances of going into weight gain, which again is a precursor of developing type 2 diabetes.
So, Dr. Singhal, one more thing that comes to my mind when I speak with you is that, when you're talking of lifestyle that is leading you to these kind of disorders, it all begins at a very young age. I mean, I've seen young mothers going and talking to a pediatrician and telling them कि मेरा बच्चा खाना नहीं खाता है, he's not having enough food, while the child seems to be, for an outsider, the child seems to be having enough food. So, what needs to happen in our society to make people aware that we are actually giving rise to a future obese human being?
So that was the whole genesis of starting the company, Harbinder, way back in 2016, because I could see children's waists are getting bigger, their hemoglobins are going down, and all of them are, in fact, last 2 years have been the worst. I have seen at least 20 children with type 2 diabetes at 15, 16 years of age. Can you imagine type 2 diabetes at 15, 16 years? And this is in a peripheral area where I live. Overall, in India, people are not even checking children getting obese, and if their necks have a slight dark discoloration, they must be having type 2 diabetes early stages. This is called acanthosis nigricans. The skin becomes dark because of insulin resistance. And IAP, Indian Academy of Pediatrics, I've worked very closely with the last 3 presidents. We have tried to do a lot of things, but somehow the parents just don't understand that a fat child is not a healthy child. A child who's fat in childhood, he is going to have a very high risk of hypertension, heart disease, diabetes very, very early on. Very, very early. I mean, like 25, 30, when the ideal person should be dating a girl, going around, traveling, looking for a job, studying, he's going to be standing in a queue to meet a doctor and buy medications. That is not the future of India which we look for, right? We have the demographic dividend on our side, a lot of young population. And if a significant number of them are going to get diabetes, it is going to be a complete U-turn for us, many, many decades backward. So the changes have to happen systemically. And it all begins with education and awareness. We have to build a society-wide system. One is of food labeling. Second is educating the parents about what is the right weight. It has to be plastered across at what age, what is the right weight. I remember a cousin of mine, her child was 45 kgs at 9 years of age. And you see, mera bachcha kuch khata nahi hai. I gave them the Fitterfly app. I said, just fill it for 3 days. I want to see what he eats. So this boy was going and playing tennis for 2 hours, which is about 400, 500 calories of burn. But he's having 2 glasses of milk with 5 spoons of honey, then protein shake and a lot of stuff. His calorie intake was 4,000 calories a day. And the mother did not know. But the moment we charted the meals on an app and show what was excess for the age, and then showed the growth track And with the growth track, we showed the risk of diabetes at 25 years. This led to a significant behavior change. If we pass a very, see, typically what pediatricians do is they pass a very prescriptive thing. Your child is fat, get him to lose weight. Nobody loses weight with that kind of sentence. But showing them, sitting with them, that why don't you check how, every parent will say, Mera bacha khata nahi hai. But if you actually chart the calories and show them using technology or using a chart, and then show them where on the growth curve they lie and the attendant risk factors, and then give the choice to them. You have a choice, you have two paths from here. One is this and other is this. I believe you are the right person to make this choice. Give the power back to parents. I think that will help. But most of the medical system is around prescriptions. It's not around education and awareness and giving the choice back to parents. In fact, yesterday I was reading a very nice book by Adam Grant called Think Again. It talks about motivational interviewing. So they use that to overcome vaccine hesitancy in US and Canada. And over there, they have found that motivational interviewing of parents really helps the children lose weight. So I think we need to train the full medical system into motivational interviewing, then create systems so that we can create awareness so that people can make right choices and get the outcomes.
So, Dr. Singal, you spoke about common soil when you and I were talking. Can you share for our audience what is the hypothesis of a common soil?
So yeah, it's a very interesting hypothesis actually. So we always talk about a fertile soil and a non-fertile soil. So similarly, when we talk about the hypothesis which connects all these metabolic health conditions, there are a set of circumstances, environment, and genetics which dictate the development of these metabolic disorders. So that is the common soil. So that common soil includes people who have a high genetic predisposition or they come from a race like Indian race. So Indian race was historically a starving race. Now we have abundance of everything. Our genes cannot handle that abundance. So one is that you come from a race which is genetically predisposed. Secondly, you have behaviors in the family where you eat more, exercise less, your mobility is less. Thirdly, you have a very sedentary kind of approach to everything. Besides the exercise ability being less, the whole system hinges around this thing. So once you combine all these 3-4 factors, then this becomes the common soil. And from this common soil, what originates is a high risk of PCOS, high risk of diabetes, high risk of hypertension, high risk of heart disease. And even now the latest research is showing more than 5 or 6 cancers are linked to obesity at a younger age. So this is the common soil where the genetic risk, the racial risk, your environment in terms of bad nutritional habits, poor exercise, poor mobility will overall lead to a set of metabolic health conditions. And for getting a better outcome, we need to change the soil. See, we cannot change our race. I still love being an Indian. I still like brown skin. But what I can change is the environment which I live in. Because then the choices become very simple. The kind of shopping cart which comes to my house, the way I train my servants to cook the food, the way the dining table is set, salad is served first, everything else is served later. And in the fridge, the stockings are only healthy foods. Even if we, on Diwali time, we got so many gifts of unhealthy stuff, we just distributed immediately, didn't even open the box. So that's how you change an environment and change your soil. And then you build your exercise regime. In the night, you pack your bag and keep it next to your bed along with the shoes. So the moment you get out, that's the first thing which you see. So you don't give yourself choice. You fill up your water bottle, you ready your gym bag, it's next to your bed when you get up. And you block time on your calendar. So that's how you change the soil around you.
I think that's brilliant because you are creating an environment that will lead you to a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
Dr. Singal, we're talking of technology, and we're talking of technology playing an important role in the overall well-being of a person, both physiologically as well as mentally. What is the role of wearables in all this? We have IoTs that have come in. How important are these wearables to help you get the right information and change your life?
So wearables are going to be very, very important, Harbinder, and the way the whole kind of data and FDA approval some of these wearables are getting in terms of purest data. So if I ask you to do your blood sugar every day, you won't do it. Ideally, you should do it 3 times a day for at least 7 days to get how it's happening. It's impossible to do 20 blood sugar reading, which the IDF, International Diabetes Federation, recommends. So wearables are going to simplify a lot of these things. So for health tracking, wearables are the only way out. So we use wearables like CGMS devices, which stream a data of blood sugar reading every 15 minutes, so you know what's happening throughout the day. Then tracking your steps, tracking your heart rate, tracking your stress levels. And then one of the things which in healthcare, especially when we talk about diabetes, heart disease, hypertension, is tracking your sleep quality. So in sleep, there is a phenomenon of heart rate variability, which predicts your longevity and your risk of heart disease. So if you start tracking these things using variability, using variables, it can really change the outcome, because then you can quantify the risks and also chart a journey. This is your health risk today, considering your data from these wearable devices, and this is ideally where you should be. And here is a journey using technology, which will get you from point A to point B, and you can see it happening on a daily or a weekly basis. Without variables, it's just impossible. It is just general blanket advice. But once you have the pure data coming from a variable, you can make it supremely personalized and track it at a granular level. So I think in the next 5 years, it's going to the full next 5 years are going to be healthcare variables. So the I think the days of just tracking of steps is passé now. What we need is to track our body's response to exercise, our body's response to stress, our body's response to sleep, which can help us personalize the healthcare paradigm. And for that, there's no other way out except variables.
I mean, I can only visualize that you're actually carrying a, a part of a diagnostic lab on your wrist.
Yes, non-invasive. Yes.
Non-invasive, non-invasive. It's actually very beautiful. Dr. Singal, we started our discussion trying to understand your motivation and how it turned into your purpose. I won't, before I let you go, I would love to get from you a message for people in our Indian society uh, on how to manage and what is the kind of life do you wish they would lead?
That's a tough one, Arvinder. So no, my wish is that Indian people should get aware where we are headed and work very closely together with the regulators, with the payers, with the providers, so that we start making the right choices, getting aware, making the right choices to get the right outcomes. My wish is to India's GDP not go into diabetes, but rather into building better education system, better infrastructure rather than treating diseases. So that's my wish list, and I'm very sure that if we work together, Indians are the smartest race. We have always fought against adversity in the last many centuries, and if we can work together as one unit and adopt technology to solve this problem, that would be the way forward.
Dr. Singhal, one more question, which stems out of what you just said. Uh, we know that variables is the thing. We know that technology is playing a role. But when you look at India, I mean, once you're facing a problem as a nation, it is beyond the cities. We see that diabetes has now reached
Even
our
in rural
tier
population.
2, tier 3 rural population. How will technology be available to them in a manner that it is useful and usable, that it can make a difference to them?
That's again a very wonderful question, Harbinder. So I think a government is trying to create digital infrastructure even at district health centers. And some of these wearables you don't need to wear every day. Even if you get a diagnostic scan for say a week, makes you understand. Like in our program, we give CGM device for only 14 days. Once you get the data, which foods, what time, what sleep, what stress, then you can chart the journey from there. And the way the future generation CGM devices are going to come, they're going to be actually as the price would be same as glucometers. So there is a whole lot of push as the adoption of these variables improves, the prices will come down. Government can of course subsidize some of these things and make these things available on a rental basis at the centers, where you can give them for a week, understand the thing, and then let them come back. But beyond that, I think technology can also have a meaningful way in which we integrate into the existing primary healthcare system, even with Anganwadi workers. I saw a couple of projects by Maharashtra and MP government where these Anganwadi workers have smartphones and they have great educational modules for childbirth vaccination on them. So I think on the same infrastructure, we can now build modules for chronic disease management or prevention and start taking initiatives in that manner. There are a lot of surveys also done by healthcare professionals where they go to rural population and study their various things. बच्चे का height, weight, vaccination status, pregnancy status. In the same thing, we can start including dietary advice, fitness advice, exercise advice, try to chart what kind of foods they include. And last thing which the government can do at scale is moving from a carbohydrate rationing system. So most of the things which government provides is sugar, wheat, and rice, right? These are all pure carbohydrates. We need to include some proteins and some fiber into the rationing system, into the free subsidy system, because healthier food is always more expensive than unhealthy food. A burger will always cost more than a salad, less than a salad, right? So I think government should make an attempt towards introducing these few foods into the rationing system so people can get a bit of protein and fiber into their daily diet, which will also bring down these chronic diseases in a big way. And finally, I think FSSAI should really bring on these chips and kurkure are available even in the smallest of villages. People spend 10 rupees on buying those chips and kurkure for their kids. Every single child who comes to clinic has those things, even in villages. I think we should just do away with those things completely as a regulatory maneuver. No child less than 12 years should be given those things.
I think that's a brilliant idea. I think, talking about rationing from the government side to include proteins rather than carbohydrates. I think another thing, two things that come to my mind, and since we are having a conversation, is to ban these foods from schools.
Yes.
You
On
know,
nearby schools, or even ban the advertisements where kids are shown in these foods.
yeah.
Strengthen the labeling system. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And second is, I mean, the where company like yours could probably make a difference is where you have the variables in local languages.
Yes.
Because half the time they don't understand what is being told to them or what is being communicated to them. And with Make in India, I think that's one initiative I think we should take towards moving towards a rural population. But Dr. Singal, thank you so much for spending time with us. It has been such a wonderful conversation. I enjoyed it thoroughly. And not only is this conversation good, but I think it's going to be very useful for everyone who's watching this. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sharing all the information that you did.
Thank you very much, Harbinder, for inviting me. I really enjoyed this session. Thank you.